Today we are going to make an easy white bread, mainly because we need buns and the store is out of bread. So today we are going to have the kids help make an easy white bread. So guys, here's our ingredients. Here you go. Owen, you want to show them? So this is why it's called easy white bread, because it's like really easy. So we're going to need 5 teaspoons of yeast. I buy the yeast in this big container because I make a lot of bread. You can just get the packs too. So 5 teaspoons of active dry yeast, 5 tablespoons of sugar, 1.5 teaspoons of salt. And we need a 1/4 cup of, you can use oil or melted butter. I think melted butter just tastes better in bread. And we're going to need 1.25 cups of warm water at around 105 degrees. Basically, if you put your finger in it and it's warm to the touch. It doesn't want to be hot. It'll kill the yeast if it's too hot. If it's too cold, it won't proof enough. And then you have your flour. So, to get started, we need to get our warm water.
What's that thing in the other container?
This is sugar.
Yeah.
So yeah. And as long as it doesn't go over 110, we should be fine. But I'm thinking, yeah, we should be good. A little bit over, so let's let it kind of cool for just a second. Too hot will kill the yeast. So, all right, who wants to help put in the sugar?
Me.
All right, we need 3 tablespoons of sugar. And your hands have been washed?
Yep.
Okay. Which one's tablespoons? Do you know? How about this one? 1 TBSP, 1 tablespoon. So here is our sugar. While the water's nice and warm, we're going to melt the sugar. So do 3 of those. Shake it a little bit. Yeah, there you go. Get it flat. And now pour it in there.
And where?
In the water. 1. And shake it flat. There you go. Shake it flat, a little flatter. There you go. 2 and 3. There you go.
I see.
Good job. Now,
It looks different.
get something to stir it up with. See how it's, you can see it in the bottom there? Stir it up to get it melty. Incorporated in the water. Okay. That was our 3 tablespoons of sugar. Now, we want to get our yeast proofing. Let's hope this is not too hot still. Let me see, touch it. Oh yeah, it's cooled down a lot. I'm stirring it. Okay, perfect. As long as it's just warm, like bath water. A little warmer than bath water, maybe. 5 teaspoons of yeast. Zach, you want to do our teaspoons of yeast? Here you go. Here, I'll let you. There's 1.
What happens if you eat this?
It would be really gross.
I want to eat it now.
2.
It smells gross.
3.
It smells like cereal.
It does. 4. That's a good observation. It
I
does
don't
smell
eat
like cereal. Almost out in this jar. Okay, here you go. Last one. Okay, so now we want to proof this till it gets foamy and frothy. That should take probably anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes. And we're back. So it's been about 5 minutes and the water's pretty warm. We did not kill our yeast, so
It smells sour.
it does smell sour. So it's all frothy and foamy now. Do you see how that looks there? And so to that, we are going to add our salt. In our recipe, we need to have, it says 1.5 teaspoons, but in this recipe, they also reduce it to 1 teaspoon, which is what I do as well. I feel like that's enough for a loaf of bread. Well, this is going to make 2 loaves, or actually in our case, we're going to make 1 loaf and then some hot dog buns. Okay, so we have our salt. We just sprinkled in there. We also want to add our melted butter to that. melted butter. Can use oil, but I prefer to use butter. Okay, and then the only thing we're missing now is our flour. So I've already measured out 2 cups of flour. Just gonna dump that in there. And then I wanted to show a little trick for measuring flour, because if you just scoop it in and hard pack it in there, that might actually make your flour too much because it's going to be packing it down. I like to measure with grams and weights, but in this recipe we're just using cups. So one trick, if you don't want to spoon it out, which is the best way, but this is the quicker way, you kind of just give it a shake to get some air in between there so that it's not too compact. So the recipe calls for 3 to 3.5 cups. So I always like to have half a cup sitting on the side to add as needed. But I'm just gonna have the 3 cups in there for now. So there's 3 cups in there. Now you can incorporate it with a spoon a little bit.
Mom, I need to get my shoes on.
And
He saw his phone.
okay, so now that it's a little incorporated here, it's pretty a little bit together. You can see how it's formed. Okay, there you go. Now on your mixer, if you don't have a mixer, this is an amazing thing when you're baking bread. I feel like it needs a little more flour. You can knead this by hand for about 10 minutes, but this is the best option if you have it. So you put it like on setting 2. Just let it sit there and mix for about, I don't know, I'd say that for about 4 or 5 minutes. And see how it's really goopy still? I do believe we're gonna slowly add the rest of your flour in. You want it to make it plate dough ball. So there's that. So as it starts to get a little more goopy, you can trade sides and add flour. And you see how now it's pulling away from the side a little bit? That's what you want it to do. So we'll do that for about 4 or 5 minutes, and then we'll come back. Okay, so this has been mixing for about 5 or 6 minutes. I did end up having to add a little more than the 3.5 cups of flour it called for because, look, when I touch it, see how my finger is not getting all gooey and sticky? That's the consistency you want it. And I felt like if we didn't add a little more flour, it would have been too sticky. So, and then once you get it off your hook, you want to flour your hand and put some flour on the top here and get it out of the bowl. So that flour keeps it from sticking to your hand and it keeps it from sticking to the bowl. So I'm just mixing that flour in because you don't want dry hard flour on the top. So I'm kind of kneading it in back in there. But you see how my hand is not sticking to it? That is the consistency you want your bread. So I'm going to shape it kind of into a little round ball here. And I have a lightly oiled bowl. I just use some spray vegetable oil, but I just want it to be a little bit of a ball so that it keeps it shaped. So that's gonna just rise for about 20 minutes until it's doubled in size. And we'll just let that. One thing I forgot to add was when it's resting, to not dry out your dough, you can cover it with like either a damp cloth or a dry cloth, doesn't matter. And let it sit somewhere warm. One place I like to stick it for proofing is in the microwave. So we'll just let it sit in there for about 20 minutes. Alexa, set a timer for 20 minutes.
20 minutes, starting now.
Okay, and that's all we wait. Okay, 20 minutes has passed, and as you can see, the dough has really filled up the whole size of the bowl now. And what we want to do now, you can just deflate the puffy dough. Okay, so what we're gonna do now is, since we're making hot dog buns with this recipe, we are going to weigh the dough. You can use grams or ounces. I'm using ounces. So this one is 31.2 ounces. Okay, So that would mean that we need about 3.9 ounces per little dough ball. We're gonna make 8 dough balls. And I have sanitized and cleaned my surface, my work surface here. So what we're gonna do is we need to divide this dough here into 8 equal pieces. And we're gonna use our scale to help us with the weight. So I have this handy dandy cutter here. Oops, my thing cut off. So we need about 3.9. That is definitely too much. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna keep messing with it till we get the right size. I have one hand, my 3.8 works. Okay, so we're gonna get 8 dough balls about this size. Okay, so now we have our dough balls that are all portioned out here. And my video guy had to go off and do his writing assignment, so you should see the creative, nifty way I have my camera positioned in the cabinet held up by paper plates. So, getting creative here. So to shape you gotta go wash your hands. I have a little guy wanting to help, and he's gonna help as long as you have hands washed. So, to make a proper shaped hot dog bun, we wanna make sure we have a floured work surface. Do you wanna do one, Nathan? Yeah. Okay, make sure your hands are dry though, because if you touch dough with wet hands, it's gonna get, you can put your hands in a little bit of the flour there. So you want to do this one here? Just do what I do. Okay, so smash it out a little bit. Yeah, just flatten it out like that. We're gonna get it just kind of like a rectangle shape.
Can I make a mini pizza?
No, we're making hot dog buns. So we are going to make a rectangle, and then we're just gonna fold it over in thirds. So there's one fold. You got it, and kind of flatten it out. It can be flat, where it's gonna rise again, so it can be flat. Work with it flat. And then we're gonna fold it over again in the middle. And then, just press it down, because you don't want a seam. You want to seal that seam up. All right, then you just want to fold the ends in like this. Like that, yeah, just fold ends. And then when you set it down, you can kind of just shape it and make it even like that. So, and then we're gonna do that for all 8 buns. You got that one? There's Nathan's. So there we go. We'll flip it over and let it sit seam side down on our tray. Oh, yep, there's Nathan's dough ball. Okay. Here we go. There's Nathan at work. Yeah, I had my phone propped up on that. Oh, that looks a little dirty there. It's not dirty, it's just stained. But he's working on that one there. So we're gonna get all 8, and then we're gonna put them all in the pan like this. They don't wanna be touching this way, but once they poof up a little bit and make their shape, they'll probably touch just a little bit. But we're gonna put 2 rows of 4 on this tray and let it proof for, I don't know, about 10 minutes. Okay, and here is all 8 of our buns proofing. They're gonna have to rise for about, I don't know, 10 minutes. What about? And then keep them covered. Okay, and I think in the beginning of this video I said that that recipe makes 2 loaves. It really only does if you're making 2 small round loaves, also called a boule. But in this case, I went ahead and made another batch of dough to make a loaf, because I wanted to have a loaf of bread and hot dog buns for dinner. So this is our second ball of dough, and I just get it good and floured up here to work with. So to make a loaf, oh good, my video guy came back. Okay, to make a loaf, you can just hand knead it a little bit. Make sure if it starts to get sticky, put more flour. Okay, so to make a proper shaped loaf, you can shape it any which way you want, but this is one way to make it. All right, so you can kind of make it like you're making some cinnamon rolls. You can roll it out. I'm just being sloppy with it. But basically, and just roll it. You just want to roll it to the end here, and then you want to pinch your seams. See how I'm pinching to get it, and then kind of just fold it over. And you can kind of tuck your ends in a little bit like that and pinch them down as well. Tuck that over, pinch it. And everything's pinched together. And then when you flip it over, see it's kind of a nice loaf. So I have a lightly oiled pan right here, and I'm just gonna plop that in there and let that proof for about 10 to 20 minutes, just till it doubles in size again. And then that'll be our loaf to go with our buns. Okay, our hot dog buns have been proofing, and you want to brush them with a mixture of egg white, and you beat it with just some cold water. That's why it's all frothy looking. I just kind of stirred it together. So that's egg white and water is what we're brushing these with. So you just want to brush the tops to make sure that, one, they don't dry out in the oven, and this also gives them a little bit of a color on their crust. So we're going to do that for all of them. And in the meantime, my loaf that is also proofing, we're going to brush the top of the loaf as well before we put it in the oven. I have my oven preheated to 375 degrees. And for these hot dog buns, I'm going to check them after about 10 minutes. I'll say 15 minutes total, but we're going to check them after 10 and see what they look like. Okay, here are our done hot dog buns. You can see they're just touching. So when you pull them apart, they'll be like soft and flaky. And then the bread was baking on the second shelf, and it kind of rose up into the grate above, but you can get the idea of what the bread should look like. It's nice and soft, got a nice crust on the top. So that is a loaf of easy white bread and easy. Owen said they're very donut-like from one of his vocabulary words from his lessons. And that you can have easy homemade bread, and I will have somehow the recipe attached somewhere in the comments, possibly. Not exactly sure, all this technology stuff. Enjoy.